Okay, I'm out on North Pine Dam in the Old Town Topwater PDL. A little bit of background: I've been provided the topwater today by Freak Sports, just as a loaner, just to do a short review on. I've been curious about this kayak for a long time. Anyone that's seen my videos will know that I am a Hobie owner. I've currently got a Hobie 2019 Outback, which are a fantastic kayak. They're 12 feet long. I've also owned Hobie PA 14s, which I have got the new 360 arriving soon, hopefully. This Old Town was one of the ones that I walked into Freak Sports to buy some accessories and had a look, and I thought, well, that actually is a really good looking yak. It's only 10'6". My Outback is 12 feet long. They have got a 12-foot version of this coming out, and there was one I sort of hoped to lay my hands on, but it hasn't come in yet. But I'm actually shocked. I carry a massive amount of gear in comparison to most anglers, and this little 10'6" hull has soaked it up incredibly well. Now, plenty of storage under the seat. The seat sits quite high as standard, can't really change that, but it's not tippy, it's very stable. It's quite a good seating position. The pedaling motion was a bit foreign to me, I must say, when I first got on here. It's not a Hobie Mirage drive. When I first got into it, I was actually feeling like I was catching a little bit at the top and bottom of the stroke. Now, that may just be because it's pretty much a brand new yak. I think the owner's only had it on the water once. So it may just be that, one, me getting used to it, two, that drive wearing a little bit now. My motion now is super smooth. Still got a tiny catch every now and then when I'm not thinking, but it's getting to be a natural motion to me. It's no major effort at all. I'm doing a good speed. At the moment I'm probably pushing just over 2 knots without really trying at all. Kayak, good and bad so far. To be honest, there's nothing to complain about. It's pretty damn good. Not a lot of space for things like your phones, etc. This little hatch down here is quite small, but it still accommodates my phone, car keys, etc. no problem. Plenty of space in the footwell. More than ample space in that front hatch. The rear deck, which I'll show you later, is fine. I've got my H crate in there, which is probably a little bit too big for that rear deck, in fairness. I probably should have seen if I could get a smaller crate. The only reason it's in there is because there's no rod holders or anything on this kayak at all. It's come out basically naked of any accessories. So I have put on my crate on the back just to hold some rods, my cooler, etc. Pretty much, apart from that, there's nothing on here apart from what it came out of the factory with. I'm pretty impressed so far. Guys, I really did not expect to be as impressed with this kayak as I am. It's really, really good. I think I don't know what it's going to be like out in really messy conditions. It's stable, but it just doesn't. The front of the hull's not as sharp, etc. I don't know how it's going to go busting through waves, etc. Now, one thing I found with this kayak when I was car topping it, I drive an Mitsubishi, an Isuzu MUX. Now, with the Outback on top, I really struggled to open the rear door of my car, and with this being 1.5 foot shorter, the kayak goes on the roof and I can get easy access into the back of the car. For me, it's actually a perfect travel yak. It is that fraction heavy, but that to me indicates that it's a very solid build. They haven't skimped on materials on this thing. It is well manufactured. As I said, I was really shocked from what I've seen so far. I'm really impressed. I'll do some stability tests, etc. later, but I'm pretty excited to sort of get into it today and hopefully catch a few fish. It's going to be a bit harder without a sounder, not knowing what depth I'm in. Don't know this waterway at all, so I've already lost the lure on a tree. First cast, didn't know that it was underneath the water there, and then basically 2 seconds later I trolled the lure out and got straight onto a fish. So it's fantastic so far. I mean, if this was set up the way I like my kayak set up, so I would have rod holder on each side, GoPro in a mount at the front, sounder off to my right there. I think there's plenty of space to fit those in. Those track mounts that are on there look pretty useful. Unfortunately, as I said, I'm not going to fit stuff onto somebody else's kayak, so I've just left it nude. Absolutely cavernous space under the seat. These here, you could probably put some small Plano boxes or something in there. As I said, I've got a couple of big ones under the seat, which I won't show you, but once I pull up and get back to land, I'll go through that with you. But so far so good. Stable kayak, speed wise, it actually seems to do pretty well. I can't really do a speed test because I haven't got a sounder hooked on. Now, I'm not sure if you can see that, but a bit of water in the bottom. Just pulled the drive just as a bit of a test, just to see how much water actually sat in there. Not an amazing issue. I've just sat back in my seat, and a little bit less is obviously sitting there now. But that's probably the only downside I've seen so far. As you do get that water in, okay, it's going to drain off, but if you've got stuff sitting in there, okay, all my stuff is fairly salt resistant, etc. But if we were on salt water, that's probably the one thing I really wouldn't like. Showing you obviously how to disengage and redeploy this drive. Simply a case of undoing that, lifting, and there it is. Now that is really not very difficult at all. That's actually probably a lot easier than the Mirage drive when you're just trying to get it up out of the water, get it back in. As I said, it's a bit of a just pull towards you. I'm sure you can make that look a lot better when you've done it a few times. I've just got to learn the motion and then just lock it in. That's it. That's as hard as it gets. Really, really simple. And then pedal away. Now, obviously, the forward and reverse is extremely simple. There's no pulling of levers or anything like there is on the Hobie. Simply heading in. If I'm coming in here and I want to reverse or to slow my motion, simply a case of just slowly putting it into reverse by pedaling backwards. This thing it absolutely turns on a dime. It's got a big rudder, so it bites in very, very quickly. Very, very impressed with the turning circle on it. It's just about turning on itself now. There doesn't seem to be a lot of lag in that biting in and turning as well. I'm here with Lee Major. You can check Lee out on his YouTube channel. He's also one of the key instigators of the Lure project, so check out those pages, guys. Lee doesn't know it yet, but he's about to give me a speed test because
I'm trying to work out how to get
he's playing with his sounder to bring up his speed. But Lee's obviously in the 2019 Outback, which is what I own. Well, it's not really a fair comparison because I'm in a 10'6" Yak that's significantly wider than the Outback. So it's a little bit sleeker. It should be, in theory, should cut through the water that little bit better than this kayak. Length does equal speed with kayak, so we'll go for a little bit of a gentle pedal. Yeah, I'll let you go at what you consider to be a comfortable clip, and I'll do the same.
So I reckon if I was just cruising along, I'd be traveling.
Yep.
I'm doing like 2.2 knots.
Yep. So I'm just going to match pace with Lee and see how much effort it takes, because I know what it feels like in the Outback. Now, probably pretty equivalent to the amount of effort I'd normally put in on the kayak, on the Hobie. But what speed are we doing, Lee?
2.3 knots.
2.3 knots, which not exactly setting any records. Got a slight headwind, which is probably pulling about a quarter of a knot off us, and that's about it. We might ramp it up a little bit, and this is where the Hobie does feel a little bit more natural. I'm getting that little bit of a catch at the top on this. I'm feeling that resistance now. I'm really feeling it. Yeah, Lee's cruising, and I'm sort of pushing hard. Not super hard, but it's not comfortable either. So, what speed are you doing? 3.5. Yeah. So this is far more of an effort, I must say. Yeah, there is a lot of water being pushed at the front. It's sort of breaking more around the outback. But it is a very wide kayak. It's got a very, very blunt nose on it. It's not really cutting through the water. So at 97 centimetres wide and only 10'6", it's not going to be as quick as the outback. I reckon the 12-foot one would be an interesting one to try. Lee is dealing with the fish. One thing I just noticed, this is pretty handy. I was about to change rods. Thought I would put this one back in the crate at the rear, but that nestles in there just nicely. It's out of the way of the pedals. Not going to get damaged. That's actually pretty damn good, to be honest. The extra width of the kayak does give you that capacity to store gear quite well. So on the outback I'd be probably nearly smacking that with my drive. Okay, got another fish on. This time I've actually got the camera running, which is good. Once again, it's the RMG Poltergeist. Have I dropped it? Or is it swimming towards me, I think? No, I'm on, just a little fish. Nothing special, but it's a fish. Hopefully we'll get this one in and get him on camera. That Poltergeist, they're absolutely fantastic on these bass. That is my favourite colour. Others seem to favour the purple. I guess personal preference. I don't think the fish seem to care, to be honest. I think it's more about the action of the lure than.
You want to pop a photo, or you're not worried about it?
And he's not real happy, so I might just. My rag is already wet. Just get him in. Good thing about being in fresh, I don't have to worry too much about getting salt water on my gear. So get him back in the water. Once again, managed to put the camera into the wrong mode. Just threw an eco gear bolt with a spinner jig on the end of it. I can't remember what you call them, but hit it. Oh, it's not a bad fish, actually. Not a bad fish. Probably as big as the first one. Stay away from that prop. Nice fish. Alright. Just made that out of his gob. Just over 40. Maybe just under. Alright, away you go, my friend. Just a word on tracking. This thing is actually, given the fact that it is short and fat, it actually tracks incredibly well. I am totally hands-free at the moment. I can grab my drink bottle, have a drink, hold my rod, give it a jig, and I am tracking pretty much dead straight. The rudder control down here has a handy tension adjustment, which I really haven't tensioned up too much. It was pretty good, straight out of the box. That's amazing. Finding lots of things to like about this kayak. A couple of things I don't like as well, but on the whole, pretty damn good. Just got absolutely spanked. I hope it's as big as it feels. It feels bigger than the other ones, but probably isn't. Coming towards me now. Where are we? Come on, my friend. Take my time getting you up. Oh, it's a solid fish. That's a goodie. That's a nice fish, mate. Oh, lucky those hooks pulled just as I've got it in as well.
I'll get you a proper photo too so you can send it to Ritha.
Just 43. That's good. Nice fish. Got him?
Yeah.
My friend, you can go back in. Thank you for that. Away he goes. Okay, a couple of my little niggles. Nowhere to just toss random stuff. Okay, so by that I mean, say for example, you cut off a lure, you want to tie another one on quickly. You've got to put it away in a box somewhere. There's nowhere really, I mean, apart from the cup holder, that you can throw anything. Now, I guess I'm spoiled with some of the spots that I have in my current kayak where they have been really clever to put stuff in that you've got both sides of you. Trays where you can just throw spare tackle, anything really that you just want out of the way. 2 cup holders. It's pretty sensible. This yak has the space to do it. I guess they've gone mostly for comfort. It is pretty damn comfortable. The seat has been surprisingly good. I've been out in it for probably a few hours, I guess. I've been out on the water for a few hours in this yak and not really showing any signs of fatigue in my back or in my rear end, etc. So it's pretty comfy. When you stop, you've got plenty of space really to spread out. So they've given the operator a lot of user comfort. Now, they've probably gone for that instead of going for a bit more practicality, a little bit more storage space, maybe making these side pockets a little bit wider, putting in some areas to store some kit, etc. I think it's probably wanting for that a little bit. And this is a fantastic kayak, and I reckon for people using it mostly on calm water, etc., you'd be hard pressed to go past this. I mean, for the money, it's very, very good. For me, where I do a bit more variety, I get into some conditions that are a lot tougher. I want a bit more speed to get back. I want to fish through some weed beds, some really shallow sandbanks, and still retain propulsion without pulling my paddle out. Then the Outback's a better choice for me. But for a lot of people, this will be a fantastic kayak. I've really got very, very few complaints. It's a sensational rig, lots of storage, lots of stability. The drive seems really robust. I've had a look at a few pedal drives and some of them feel like they're toys in comparison to this thing. I have instant reverse, okay, and I have used it a number of times today. And yes, I use the Hobie reverse as well. Difference is I have to bring my feet together, pull the cable, and then I can reverse. And then when I go forward again, just stop, pull the cable again, go forward. Now, there are advantages to these drives. Guys, take them out, try them. I love the Hobie product. I'm very familiar with it, and I may have some bias towards it because of the fact I know it so well. Having said that, despite my bias towards it, I really like this kayak. It's a great yak. Get out, have a look at it. The drive is a little bit harder to use, and I mean a tiny bit, where it's fractional. I'm really used to this drive already now, and pedaling at this speed, which is a comfortable little trolling speed, it's not hard work. It's a pretty good drive. It is extremely robust. The hull itself, they've gone all out on comfort. Now, I'm a big guy, I'm 182 centimeters and I am no lightweight. There is a massive amount of room in here. You would have to be an extremely large person to be uncomfortable in this kayak. It's the drive inside it, pulling in and out is just so simple. It's crazy. That is actually easier than getting the Mirage drive in and out. However, when you pull this out, this is a lot heavier. When you pull the Hobie drive out and you come into shore, you've got to put it somewhere. With these, obviously, it does just, after you unlock it, instead of locking it further, it does just sit there. So you can just paddle in that last bit. You don't have to worry about the drive till you get to shore. Very easy to put back in. Simple. Can't be much simpler than that. I just don't like this water coming in. I'm sure they could have designed that better, but maybe I'm wrong. Don't know. There's probably a reason for it. Beyond that, fantastic yak. I think if you're looking in the premium kayaks, you know, that 10 to 12 foot, it's not an easy decision. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Okay, so this will give you a bit of an example of just some mild chop. Really not much of anything, to be honest. Both the Outback and I were pushing into this a second ago, and I was getting wet in the face, and the Lee in the Outback was remaining dry. So there's a little negative. It's a slightly wetter boat. The Outback by no means is a dry boat, but it tends to bury its nose in the stuff, and it sort of comes over the bow and goes down to barrage drive. At the very least, you might get a few splatters on your feet. This one, I was sort of copping some spray in the face. That's sort of settled down now as the wind's settled a bit, but so it handles this stuff fine, but this is pretty mild, to be fair. Side on, not even a hint of instability. It does have that sort of pontoon style hull with some similarities to the Outback, so I sort of expected it would handle fairly well. Drive just locked up a couple of times, so I was clumped. I wonder if it's got something wrapped around it. Ah, yeah. What are you fishing with?
Me?
Yeah.
Braid?
No, what lure?
Oh, mine's a 260.
So it's not a big purple thing, because that's what I've caught. So my first foul on the drive. Do you need more slack there, mate? Yes, it's... How the hell would it? It must have been float. But look how much water comes in when you lift the drive up.
Oh wow. That pissed me off.
Yeah, like if you're in salt, that's probably the major one for me, to be honest.
Shit floating all over the place.
Yeah, that's the downside of that drive. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay, that's not good. That's pretty well stuck. And that's why I'm just going to get myself out. Stable enough. Mind you, I'm going into the weed at the rate of knots. That's it, she's stowed into... Like, I'm sitting over the side of that.
Actually looks a lot more stable than I thought.
That is stable. That is not going anywhere. Like,
It's 6 weeks because the seat's so high too, eh?
and I admit I'm a bit of a fat unit, and I'm sitting right on the side, and that's not tipping. So that's actually pretty impressive stability, really. Right, here we go. The loading. I am not a sea tug expert, and the advantage of this is you can clip this over. I'll use this as a spare handle because this one here is useless because it unbalances the kayak. That was pretty hard. Yeah. Now I'm trying to get it in front of that. Is that likely to actually stay there, you reckon? About to find out. I reversed it down so it was pushing against the strap. Okay, let's start with the overall dimensions of the boat. At 320 centimetres, or 10 feet 6 inches in the old scale, it's a compact kayak. It has an enormous beam of 91 centimetres, which eclipses most kayaks in this length. The generous width, the pontoon style hull, the short length makes this kayak ridiculously stable. The trade-off is in speed and efficiency on the water. In every watercraft, length equals speed, so don't expect to keep up with your friends in their 12 or 14 foot holes. It's just not going to happen. Stability wise, you'd be hard pressed to find a better hull in any kayak. So this will be suited to anybody that's larger bodied, or simply people like me who have terrible balance. The rated capacity of the hull is 204 kgs, so even someone who carries a kitchen sink on their journeys is going to be hard pressed to overload it. If you're looking for a lightweight car topper, this kayak is not for you. Now, at 43 kgs rigged, the Topwater PDL is actually heavier than a lot of well-equipped 12-foot yaks on the market. The drive is 9 kilos of that weight, so you'll probably only be lifting around 34 kilos onto the rooftop. Not too bad, but still possibly a little heavy for the length of the kayak. Why is it so heavy? Well, it's just well built. It's a very well manufactured kayak. It's very solid. You're going to have to do something pretty decent to damage this kayak hull. Very, very impressed with it. So the nose on the PDL, the Topwater PDL, it's hard to tell from the video, and hopefully you're seeing this, but it's not the sharpest I've seen. Guys I was fishing with, they sort of pointed out that the kayak does seem to push a lot of water, and I must say it does feel like there's a bit of resistance there when you start to get up to speed. Now, some of that might just be that because it is so short and it is so beamy, it's never going to be the most efficient, and I think they've just erred on the side of stability, and that's fair enough. I mean, it does a lot of things very well, and we'll get to that and go over piece by piece on this hull. Okay, this front mounted handle is extremely sturdy. I probably would have preferred to see it sitting a little bit more proud of the hull, a little bit easier to carry that way, but no complaints on the quality department. They've done a really good job on that. So moving forward to this hatch, well, this is just the best way of describing this is cavernous. It is huge, pretty easy to open, just a simple squeeze to get those cables apart, and the lid then flips off. It's retained a cord there, but that is a huge space in there. Plenty of storage, a little bit of water in there, so obviously a little bit made it in during my travels, or that may have already been in there, so I'm not sure. But to me it looked fairly well sealed, so that possibly came in while I was cleaning the kayak, to be honest, so I don't think that's Topwater sealing. Showing some exceptional attention to detail. These little cutouts here have obviously been put in as a rod support, which is really handy when you're on the move. You just want to lay a rod down temporarily. I've got the seat really forward. Nobody's actually going to have their seat that far forward in practicality. So when I had the seat back, my rods actually fitted nice and comfortably in there, and they stay out of the way of the pedal drive, which is most important. Very good attention to detail there. As I said, this seat is not normally in that position. Don't know if anyone would be short enough to have it there. I'm sure they would, but be fairly rare. So mine actually cradled quite well. I actually had my rod sort of sitting on there, so it wasn't impacting any of the tackle boxes and stuff I had underneath, but it nestles quite snugly there. There's no danger of the rod flipping out of the yak. So kudos to the design team, because it is the small things on these yaks that will make the difference for a lot of people. Okay, I guess one of the most important parts of this kayak is obviously going to be this drive. Now, the first thing I noticed when I lifted this drive up was the feel of quality about it. It is heavy, it's 9 kilos. Seems to me like it's built tough. It's not like any of the other drives that I've seen where they're very plasticky, they feel very light in hand, and they literally feel like they're going to fall apart. This thing looks and sounds like quality. There's not a lot of noise while you're pedaling it. Some of the pedal drives I've seen on the market sound like a pepper grinder. This is actually quite on the water. It's relatively easy to use at cruising speed. In terms of efficiency, I feel a lot of that gets lost when you really start to put in a little bit of extra effort. Now, I'm a little bit biased. I've got a Hobie with the Mirage drive. Now, that particular drive is extremely efficient, and you pedal a little bit harder. It doesn't feel like you're putting in that much more effort. With this one at cruising speed, it is simple. There is no noticeable difference between this and the other style of drive. It is fantastic, and 90% of the time you're just going to be doing that steady cruising speed, so no problem. The cruising speed on this hull is lower because it is only a 10.5 foot kayak. The speed is controlled essentially at the end of the day. The comfortable cruising speed is, a lot of it is controlled by the length of the kayak, the efficiency of the hull. Bigger the kayak, faster the hull. Now, that is simple physics. You can make your hull less efficient and slow it down, but the simple fact is you're not going to be able to achieve as comfortable a cruising speed on a 10-foot 6 kayak as you will on, say, a 12 or a 14-foot kayak. Just not going to happen. This thing is built for comfort. It is very simple and easy to use under normal conditions. This reverse drive is absolutely fantastic. To be able to just instantly pedal and get yourself out of trouble. I used it a number of times on the weekend. I'm used to having to reach down and pull a cable to do that. So to be able to just pedal and put it into reverse straight away is actually a fantastic feature. Did manage to foul this prop a couple of times. First time was on a someone's fishing lure, which obviously it floated up to the surface, had a bit of cord attached to it. It got well wrapped around here, but it was on the exterior of the prop. It didn't get sucked in to the crack between the prop and the drive, so it came off quite readily. Now, I got some weed on it later on, deliberately ran it through some weed. It came off once again quite easily, but it did choke up very quickly in fairly minor weed. So it is one of those things. You're going to appreciate the ability to rapidly deploy this when necessary. And now, I would carry some tools, I would carry some spare parts. I don't know what is likely to fail on here. Now, Hobie Mirage drives aren't perfect. No drive is perfect. But really with these, there is potential, I would imagine, to get something caught up in those props. Now, I would talk to your dealer, carry at least some basic spare parts, or at least a socket to get that off so you can defoul it. I think these, as I said, knowing the way they've put this kayak together, they've probably done it in a way that that's going to have a high resistance to fouling, and if it does foul, it's probably easy enough to get that off. So if you do end up buying one of these, just make sure you do check that out and have the ability to clear an issue if you do have it on the water. Now, in terms of deployment, I love this thing. Okay, so this is locked into position now. Putting this in to start with is easy. This just locks into position here. These tabs are really simple, very, very solid. You're just going to struggle with any better, and I do apologise for that plane flying overhead. Now, to get it into position, it's actually easier when you're sitting in the yak. It's just a case of grabbing this handle and pulling, and down it goes. Now, it automatically indexes itself into position, and if I hadn't had that tab in the wrong position, then that would have dropped straight down. So that's as hard as it gets. Now, once you've got it into position, obviously just slide that locking tab down, and that drive is in. Super solid. Fantastic system. Probably one of the easiest I've seen in terms of deployment. Now, and once again, you're coming into shore, you want to get it up, just tab and lift, and it locks in. There's no having to remove the drive and find somewhere on the floor to lay it while you're coming in. It is simply in position, out of the way. You can grab your paddle and paddle yourself in that remaining couple of meters over the shallows. So absolutely fantastic. These front mounted gear tracks, I probably like to see them a little bit longer, but to be honest, I think they're ample. You're going to want to fit obviously things like a fish finder, maybe some forward mounted rod holders, because there aren't any molded in rod holders, and to be honest, I hate molded in rod holders anyway, because they never seem to hold the rods terribly well. So I think there's adequate space here for, say, a rod holder either side, a fish finder, and maybe fitting your GoPro if you like capturing photos of your catch. I'd probably like to see something a little bit further forward, but if you want to mount a camera or something further forward, there's nothing stopping you from probably putting a small gear track or something on the front here to do that. So plenty of space available to do it. They've optimized the width, the comfort in here, and it is amazingly comfortable in terms of the space you've got available. But in terms of accessory tracks, etc., it's pretty minimal, but I think it's enough. I don't think you need too much more than that. Now, working my way to further storage, you have got a massive amount underneath this seat. This is a huge volume of space underneath here. There's not a lot forward of the seat. So you've got these small recesses here, which seem to work quite well if you want to throw some pliers or a rag or something into. You fit a small Plano box in there. In comparison to some kayaks, there's probably not a lot of storage in this area. Mind you, there's probably a lot more than some. So it really has been optimized to allow angler comfort as opposed to just massively decking it out with accessories to fit your Plano boxes or your soft plastics or whatever. There is a lot of space under the seat, so that's where the majority of your stuff is probably going to go if you need to access it quickly. It is simple to get to. This cord sometimes gets in the way, so I'd probably see if I could adjust that a little bit and get that out of the way. But beyond that, there's oodles of storage there, so it's pretty well set up. And remembering we're only talking a 10'6" kayak here, so you're not going to have masses of storage all over the kayak. I think they've done pretty well with what they've got. Now, before we go back, I don't want to forget, probably my greatest criticism of this kayak is this area right here. Now, when this drive is in this upward position, now, so anytime you're going to want to lift that drive up, if you're going over shallows, you're on your favourite weed bed, your favourite sand flat, or you're coming into shore, this area here is going to get water in it. And if you're sitting forward on the seat, you're actually going to get a lot of water in there. I got enough that I had stuff floating under the seat. Now, I had the self-draining scuppers in here, so that it drains off relatively quickly when you drop this drive back down. But for a period of time, while that drive is up, you will get water everywhere. Now, if everything in here is waterproof, you haven't left your $1,000 camera sitting on the floor, you've forgotten to pick it up before you lift this drive up, you're fine. But it is something you're just going to need to be conscious of. If you've got bare feet on in there, your feet are going to get wet. If it's chilly, well, but most people don't come in completely barefoot, so you'll be fine. But it is just something you need to be aware of. It's probably my major downside for the whole kayak, to be honest. I just thought that there had to be a way to design that out. They've done so well everywhere else. To me, it seems a little bit crazy that they couldn't stop that hole loading up with water. Some will say it's not an issue. For me, it is. It's a bugbear because I'm not used to it. In practicality, it's probably not that big a deal. So, anyway, working our way back to the seat. What a seat. It is extremely basic in terms of looks. Very, very simple. Pretty much the only adjustments you've got is forward and reverse along this track, and you recline using these straps. Pretty agricultural, really, but it is a surprisingly comfortable seat. I was out on this thing for hours and just felt not even a hint of any back pain, or it's just, I sat in that all day. I must admit, normally I'll have to stretch a little bit, get a bit of circulation running through the body. I sat in that thing for hours and was absolutely comfortable all day. It is, for a basic seat, absolutely amazing. Now, the downside. These, yeah, they're a little bit fiddly, but when we went to place this seat in the kayak, and it's going to be difficult to show you, I'll just try to unclip these and get them up. So I've got that strapped at the back here because I just moved it, so I'll move it. Okay, so just unclipping that gently and moving forward. So I'll bring it off those tracks, hopefully. Now, you see that is solidly wedged in there. Now that is actually nearly there. Okay, now we've got it off. So it is off those tracks. Now, that is wedged. To get that back on those tracks, when you're inserting the seat for the first time, I literally had to jam that seat down into here. I'm not sure whether this hull has been deformed a little bit during transport, or this bar here has been made fractionally too long. But it made inserting a seat really tricky. And now I'm not going to be able to do that one-handed while I'm doing this video, so I'm just going to sit that there because there is absolutely no way I'll be able to get that seat back in one-handed. It was easier with two of us doing it, but I can do it by myself, but it's trying to get it in there, wedge it in and get these back onto this track is a tricky job when this bar is just that fraction too long. As I said, is the bar too long, or has this kayak narrowed a little bit, or is that just their standard design? I'm really not sure. Either way, I don't like it very much. It was my other negative for the kayak, but once the seat's on, no big deal, you're on the water. But it's just that fiddling around when you get to your favourite fishing hole, you don't really want to do. You just want to get on the water. Okay, so cup holder here. Yay, it's a cup holder, it holds things. I'd probably prefer it to be a little bit narrower, a little bit deeper, so it holds the bottle a little bit better. I had a big water bottle in there, it's sort of tipping around a little bit once it got half full. No big deal, it's a cup holder, it's there, whoopie-doo. Now, coming back, this is how you deploy your rudder. Now, I'll just show you that rudder. It naturally, when you're on the water, sits there, okay? Now, to deploy, just pull this handle, and the rudder goes down. Easy. Back up, and there it is. Not too hard, really. Pretty simple. The other advantage of this rudder is that because Old Town has got a handle here, which is pretty well useless, you can grab it there to lift it once that rudder is secured. So, which is what most owners do, I believe. Now, This is a very generous cargo area. I had my Hobie H crate running in here. Now, admittedly, I had it turned sideways because it wouldn't fit in its normal orientation. But it's a great cargo area. It's very spacious. This is a 10'6" kayak, but it feels like it's much larger because it's got such a ridiculous capacity. There is a small storage hatch here. Don't know what you'd actually use this for, to be honest. In practicality, it's not easy to get to while you're sitting in the seat. It does give you access. I guess it's probably if you want to rig up items that you're not going to need to get to regularly, etc. Say, for example, you want to mount your battery or somewhere down in there. I'm sure you'd find a way to use that hatch. I'm not really sure. Water does sit in there a bit, but it's no big deal. So again, these rod holders, they're not bad, but I don't trust anything where I can't really properly secure my reel in there. I would tether whatever I put in there just in case. Now, going underneath the kayak, hopefully I'll be able to get a good view of this. Okay, probably not, but there is a transducer hole there, transducer mount, and I can't really get it from this angle because of the timber I was sitting on. One thing I failed to mention, this small storage container built into the drive. Handy for your phone or keys, honestly, not too much more. On the side of the kayak we have a paddle holder. Now this is actually quite convenient. Paddle does clip in quite easily, very easy to get it in and out, and seems pretty secure. Because of the height of this hull too, I was finding that sometimes it is possible with your paddle on the side, it can catch a bit of water in the rough. My paddle was staying well out of the water, so it wasn't getting buffeted by any waves coming in. Didn't have any major waves hitting it, so that would probably be the key to see whether it works under those conditions, but seemed absolutely fine, so no complaints.